are we still going to do the parliament debate and Kamala?
There's not a fucking chance. Are you insane?
Session? Okay.
Do you value my life?
I haven't eaten today.
Super healthy
than
for
like
someone who
120
trains as
grams
much
of
as you
Bolton.
do. What the fuck?
I have an eating disorder. Like, I genuinely have an eating disorder. Like, I don't think, like, I can manage it, but I genuinely have one. And, like, because I can manage it, it's not a problem to me, but I genuinely have an eating disorder.
Isn't that what most people with eating disorders say? They believe that they can manage it?
Yes, Mukisa. Yes, 1,000 million%.
Because I am also one of those people. Like, I go through phases. I go through a binge. This is completely to the side. I have these binge eating episodes, and I've tried to Google it. No, like, I can't find a proper explanation. But I literally have moments where, like, I know I'm full. I recognize that I've eaten enough food, but I will just feel the need to keep eating something. Like, I will just keep eating and keep eating and keep eating. And then I feel like fucking shit at the end of it, right? And then the next day, I'm like, okay, I need to work on a diet plan. I need to figure out how I'm going to stop this behavior, how I'm going to manage, which is just super unhealthy. And I recognize it as, like, being super bad. And then also how I lose weight is I go through my sort of dietary moments where I, like, cut out carbs and sugars and then realize that, like,
super stringent and
and that's like borderline starving yourself. So I'm like, that's an eating disorder, dude. Like, you have to recognize. So I'm also the same. I'm like, I can handle it, I control it, I'm fine. And it's like, nope.
Hey, we're formerly fat kids. Maybe there's something about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like birth from that. It's like a ingrained feeling of, like, I need to, I don't know what it is.
No, in my mind, it's only a problem if it causes harm to my life in some way, like some like if it damages my relationships with people, if I get broke because of it, if, like, I don't know, if all these, like, I mean, it's a problem in the sense that, like, I feel like it's not a problem when I'm with people, like, if I'm, like, with someone, and, like, if I'm at your house, or, like, I can adopt your eating habits very easily. If we're, like, together, I can eat like a normal person. I'll eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with you, sure, we can do whatever. But when I'm alone, I'm, like, back to disordered eating. I need to gym in order to eat food. That is my reward for, I gym, so now I get to eat.
I see. Yeah.
It's wild.
No, I get that.
I could see a therapist about it, but I'm also like, I like the way I look, so...
Why have you made this a false dichotomy? There is a world where this can exist in harmony. But I was going to say, like, the way that most clinical diagnoses are pathologized, at least from what I learned in undergrad psychology, is that it has to be debilitating in your life in some way. So either it's affecting your sort of normal everyday behavior and affecting your family, friends, your peers, and also you. It's like actively becoming unhealthy. In which case, I would argue that even while we might say that, like, it's not affecting everybody, that means you're being a little bit selfish, or at least mean to yourself, because you're not recognizing the harm that it's doing to you emotionally and, like, individually.
100%. Even physically, even. I mean...
Yeah, true, yeah. But, like, yeah, it's like, it's almost like you have to kind of turn the mirror. It's like, but how are you protecting you? How are you being kind to yourself? And it's like, I'm not being kind to myself. But the justification is that everybody else seems... I'm okay with everybody else, but it's like, when it's turned back. Anyway.
So I'm going to start talking about his affidavit, which is broken up into parts. They're like A, B, C, D, E. And E is very long, and there's also like a post E. Like, these parts are all like numbered. There's a post E, which does have its own part.
It's legal,
but
shit.
It falls. Yeah. So he covers background and history. Then he talks about persons of interest, talks about municipalities and I guess how they play. I didn't read this section, guys. So this is how they play into the scheme. And then Vele Investments and its involvement, which I was pretty interested in. And then he also talks about financial records manipulation and falsification. Now, listeners, I am only going to briefly touch on sections A and D.
Valid.
Because look at the time.
We don't have the time. Also, I don't think any listener, there will maybe be one out of like every 50 persons that will actually be interested in listening to the whole affidavit. In which case, they can just go and read it themselves. They don't need us.
Yeah. Or if there were more listeners, cover this, because I feel like this is gonna, like, I don't think this is the end. This isn't the end. There's more. I mean, I did, other than like these three sources, I did look at like other reporting that was on it. What I didn't want to do is to just repeat the other reporting. I wanted to create something new.
Yes.
To do my whole PhD in this podcast episode. To make a novel contribution. So part A starts, this dude gives a personal history. He did a BCom accounting at Randstad Suid Afrikaanse Universiteit, so studies.
That's not how that works, but okay.
He qualified allegedly. I don't want Stellies to sue me because I said that he went there.
Catching strays.
He's qualified as a CA and he worked for various accounting firms, including KPMG, I believe. So in 2018, his homie Chris Manwadu, this is how he gets involved into VBS. His homie Chris Manwadu, on a call, he was like, VBS advertised for this share subscription in a vendor local newspaper. So Matodzi goes there and he ends up with 10,000 shares for himself, and this cost him 100,000 Rand of his own money. And he's chatting to some people, including the branch manager of one of their branches, the Sibasa branch, and he figures out that there are about 600,000 unissued shares valued at 6 million Rand, and that owning these shares would make the owner the second biggest holder of VBS. And the biggest owner of VBS at this point was the PIC, the Public Investment Corporation. It's one of those things where like I didn't write down what this meant because I think I knew what it stood for.
But
I feel like it's Public Investment Corporation. Let me see. Public Investment Corporation, that's what it is. If it isn't, sue me. They had 80% of the bank. So they're the biggest shareholder at this point. So Diembu, basically, this investment, Diembu Investments, was formed to acquire these shares that would make them the largest, the second biggest shareholder of VBS. And Matodzi became the main shareholder representative of D Investments on all issues related to VBS, PIC, the SARB, or any relevant stakeholders were involved. So he's the point person to talk to. But like as I said earlier, I don't know if I actually mentioned this, but in 2010 the bank wasn't doing that well. I think I did mention that the bank wasn't doing that well in 2010. So then there's this turnaround strategy that was adopted by the VBS board during the strategic session in August 2014. And in my notes, I have a note, all caps, that says, I have ADHD. I wanted answers on Vele. At this point, I decided to look into Vele. So that's when I skipped to part D, because I was like, what? I see Jambeu, but like, what about Vele? So but guys, I did mention this turnaround strategy. So I'm just gonna talk about this turnaround strategy, and this isn't from the affidavit. What it's from is that report from 2018, the one I spoke about earlier. So their goal was that they need more money, basically. So how? Lies. So like these small long-term retail depositors, because VBS was just a retail bank initially. Like they didn't have big corporate investment or clients or whatever. Or they're basically peanuts to them.
Yeah.
You know, they want peanuts. They want the whales. They want municipalities, government money. Everyone. Google wants government money. Apple needs government money. That is the endless money tap.
Yeah.
So they want municipalities to fill their coffers. So they set their sights on very large short-term deposits. And also previously, VBS was very conservative when it came to lending money. And now they're going to enter into numerous high-value fuel financing and contract financing deals with a variety of clients that were connected to either Matodzi or Ramavunga. Who was he?
Quick question.
Yes. Answer.
At this point, nobody's questioning that shift or that move, because going from being a super conservative bank and shifting towards one that is suddenly making like really quick investments and big investments. Did nobody flag that, or was that because it was in such a bad state, it kind of looked like the natural thing to do in order to save the company?
Well, this was a part of the whole like turnaround strategy type thing. So they had this goal of this is what we're gonna. A isn't making us enough money, so we're gonna do B. Our like it's a Lone Star is this like.
So nobody was like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, people were like, okay, this makes sense. You want to track into a bank. I mean, I think at some point they wanted to make VBS a proper like commercial bank. And also something that's interesting is that I don't believe municipalities were allowed to bank with mutual banks initially. Like I think something changed or something happened that allowed them to do that. I believe that municipalities were restricted to only banking with commercial banks, only depositing their funds with commercial banks. But I continue on their turnaround strategy. So they're like March 2014, 15, 16, 17. Okay. So 2014, VBS has a loss of 2 million Rand. The next year, profit of 1 million. The next year, profit of 5 million. And then the final year, a profit of like 5.6, which is like that's a calm like grow,
Yeah.
But something that I think was actually I can actually list down all these like splits, and it's actually quite interesting because in 2014 they start off with like 99% of the loans that they give out are home loans. Fast forward to 2017, where 30% are the home loans, 29.7, and 38.8 are contract finance. So they did. I mean, the little guy does the home loans, the big guys do the contract finance.
Yeah,
and in 2014 they had just under 300 million of depositors funds, and this increase is actually quite interesting. So 300 million that 2014, 350 mil of depositors funds in 2015, upgrade to 621, so plus minus 280 extra. Then we go to 2017. So from 621 million, we go to 1.5 billion.
Jesus.
In 1 year. At that, I mean, wow.
I assume at that point it was flagged, right? Like at that point they were like, whoa.
Well, the report does go on to say, it will be shown in due course the 2017 audited financial statements were, however, materially and fraudulently misstated.
Right.
So there be lies going on here. But yeah, no, that was their turnaround strategy, which looks impeccable. I mean, they ended up with, from 2016, they had $250 million in cash and cash equivalents. The next year, they had 800 million. That's like 3x.
Fuck
plus.
Me. Yeah, that's
or
insane,
triple your money.
actually.
VBS.
And you know what, actually, now that I think about it, this is what's, I think, particularly baffling for me, is that if they had maintained that gradual increase that you were describing between, I think, 2014 to 2017 or whenever, 2016, nobody would have raised an eyebrow, because people would have been like, this is a turnaround strategy. In some ways that makes sense. And by nobody, I mean like this wouldn't have been blown up to the extent that it is now because of how much they ended up taking. So at least we assume, because I'm sorry, I'm under the assumption that most big corporations are functioning this way. There's fraud going on in some capacity in most major corporations. Like that's just the presumption that I take. So nobody would have been like, this is a bit weird. But because they fucked with the money and they took a little bit way too much, that was when people were like, hang on.
Just a little bit way
Actually,
too much.
like 9 times way too much. People were like, whoa, hang on. This is now, you're doing corruption too, like, you're doing too big of corruption. You need to do baby corruption. You can't do massive corruption. Which is like really an indictment on like, I guess, human greed. Because at some point, they figured out that they could get away with this, at least, you know, in some parts. But one of them probably realized, or I assume the main dude, probably realized that if we just keep doing this on into a bigger scale, like we can get so much more money. In which case they obviously stopped. It's like, this is why people say you need post-nut clarity, right? Because it's like it's like talking to someone that you have a crush on while being at 100% horniness level. You're not functioning at normal brain capacity. That's just not, it's not you. You're going to say some wild shit. You're going to do some wild shit. And then once you've nutted, you're going to be like, whoa, none of that should have happened. I went way too far. Yeah. So he, I think, was functioning at that state of like, he's like getting to a point where he gets too excited and he's like, we can get this. We can get as much of this, without taking a moment to realize, actually, if we just defraud the company slowly, we could still make a shit ton of money over a longer period of time. But he was like, fuck it, let's go for the big boys, which is really fucking stupid. And I'm not promoting corruption. I'm just saying, I mean, there's visibly an easy way to do it.
Be an accelerationist. I think, because sometimes things have to get really bad before they get better. That's what history tells us. Literally, that is literally the history of the world. Unfortunately, things just have to get so catastrophic before someone decides to make to do something about it. By someone, I mean the people in power, obviously. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about. I mean, we'll talk about that when we get to that section. But I mean, Biden handing over to Kamala. I mean, like, what did it take for that to happen? I mean, Trump got shot. He did an awful debate performance. Like, I wonder, like, was the shooter, like, imagine the shooter was like, okay, I don't like Trump because he was on Epstein's black book. I think there was some motivation there behind that. That's why he didn't like Trump or whatever. And I kind of don't want to do the whole killer president thing, because then I might make a martyr out of him. So what if I just scare the Democrats into replacing Biden?
Yeah.
You know, what if I do that? What if that was his goal, guys? You know, and not to be honest. What if that was, I'm just postulating here. We're not even. I'm not even in my lane, guys. I'm not even in my lane. Stick to the segment. Okay? So. So there's this part D. This is like, I guess this is the penultimate section, I guess, in which I ask the question of when Vele came into the picture. I asked that initially or a bit earlier. So Matodzi registers Vele in 2015. And there are two kinds of shareholders here. There are equity shareholders and preference shareholders. And according to this bajajfinserv.in site, just to describe this difference, because Matodzi does go into saying like what the difference was, but I just wanted like a proper like brief overview. So equity shares means you own the company, and preference shares means that you have the first claim on the company's profits. So if the company's value goes up and you own equity shares, what you own is worth more, therefore you are worth more. Yeah. Whereas in preference shares, company makes more profits, you get more profits, you get more like actual cash. So like that is the difference there. And the equity shareholders get their dividends after the preference shareholders. So because you know that whole like if you own shares you're entitled to dividends, well you're after these preference people. And he says that former vendor king, he was the only equity shareholder with an equity shareholding of 100%. And he does attach proof apparently. And he then goes on to say the king's shareholding was artificial and was meant for PR purposes, as the equity shareholder had no voting rights. So Vele had two preference shareholders, the ones who get the profits first in line for the big bucks. There was Vencor and this other company called the PM Trust, and Vencor had 71.4%, and the balance of 28.6 was held by PM Trust, which PM Trust was held by the benefit of this Paul dude and that king I spoke about just now. But these shares were convertible preference shares, which meant that they could be converted to proportionate ordinary shares on certain conditions. These preference shareholders, they were entitled to rights normally associated with ordinary shares and could appoint directors based on their shareholding. They were entitled to a monthly management fee agreed upon by all parties, amended from time to time, which is basically a salary. And he also says that most of the shareholders got that money through entities that held the shares. And then he goes on to break down who these shareholders are, what percentage they owned and such. Just like a brief overview, because I do state they're not that many people, so let me just start. Parallel. The ultimate owner of Parallel was this dude named Nesane. All these different entities all own about like 20%. I think there are 5 of them. They own 20% of this Vencor. So Parallel ultimate owner was Nesane, and he was the non-executive director of VBS, nominated by the PIC. And from 2016, which is a government body, but I actually think the PIC, I think, is the biggest like asset manager on the continent of Africa. I believe that is a statement that is true. Someone fact check me, but I think I hear that from whatchamacallits. Jamie, do you want to be my Jamie? Listeners, I don't listen to Joe Rogan. This is just from clips in the past. Anyway, so from 2016 to 2018, this Parallel, so not Nesane, but Parallel, allegedly received 7.5 million in salaries, and that also excluded loans or facilities. I assume this means overdrafts. There was this Munyani Investments, whose ultimate owner was Andile, who was the executive director and the CEO of VBS. Quote unquote, he received vast sums of money from Vele's bank accounts at VBS, but he contends that these payments were for consultancy services that he rendered. He received 23.5 million in that same purpose.
Jesus.
And this dude,
for consulting, sure.
What's Matodzi, guy's ADHD. Matodzi actually says that payments made from the Vele bank accounts and or its subsidiaries to Munyani Investments on behalf of Andile were irregular and corrupt in nature, and they were rewards for his participation in the broader VBS scheme. Neither Munyani Investments nor Andile rendered any services to Vele that would entitle them to any remuneration by Vele Investments. The convertible preference shares were never paid for by either Munyani Investments or Andile. So I think that's interesting on two fronts. Firstly, this guy was probably doing illegal stuff with Andile, as he was the chairman and Andile was the CEO of this VBS bank. And in this plea deal, he's just saying this guy wasn't... He's basically throwing this guy under the bus. So I wonder if this is like one of the trades that was made in this thing. He literally is like, no, he didn't deserve any of this. He didn't deserve this money. Even though we schemed together, we probably were involved in all the same schemes. Probably, most likely, he deserved nothing. I'm just going to make that clear, guys. Maybe that's the purpose of that little aside in his little affidavit. But then there's also this Tshifhiwa Capital, owned by this Magula, non-executive director of VBS, also nominated by the PIC. And his job title was executive head of risk management at the PIC. Well, actually, let me just... Is it corporation? No, it's on my head. What does that C stand for? Corporation, Public Investment Corporation. I was right. Okay, cool. Wait. The public... This is from Google's little blurb. It's from the PIC, I assume. The Public Investment Corporation Corporation is a South African state-owned entity with 2.5 trillion rands of assets under management. As of March 2022, it is Africa's largest asset manager. Okay, so guys, I was right when I said that, just to let you know.
Which is also like, I guess it's interesting because like this, if it is, 2.5 trillion rand is a shit ton of money. It's like the money that was stolen.
It's owned by the government of South Africa also. Let me add that too.
Yeah. But I mean, so now this is already an organization that is earning a shit ton of money with the workers in that organization going, let's steal from this, or at least let's take from this fund as much as we possibly can. Which is like at that level of greed, I'm like, I don't know. There's no level of me that goes, you know what, you tried your best. Because I have this thing where, like, you know how sometimes people are like, you gotta hand it to this person because they did, and I'm like, you don't have to hand it to that person at all. That person was evil and terrible and bad. But I do have this moment where there are times when somebody's trying to steal from a major corporation or something, or shoplifting, and I go, you know what? If it's, from the bottom punching up, I'm like, that's fine. If it's up punching down, that's terrible. So I'll often give props to people. I'm like, you got caught. It sucks and it's terrible, but at least you try. I respect the hustle. I respect the grind if you're trying to take money from the big guys. But in this case, like, you were the big guys. You were already there. You were now trying to, like, you know what I mean? I don't understand.
I'm also like, surely there's enough money. Like, especially if you're doing it illegally. Like, if your gains are ill-gotten, surely there's enough. Like, surely there's a part of your brain that is like, I could get caught, let me stop.
Right.
Like there's this one part where, like, surely for people like, I don't know, Elon Musk and those, like, surely there's enough money. But like, one could be like, those are legally gotten funds. Like, there's no prison that they're going to end up in, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But for these people doing crimes, like, are you not scared of this prison that might eventually come? Unless, like, I don't know, the people who could put you in prison are also involved. I don't know. Anyway,
mutually assured
so
destruction.
he got 7 million. There's this other entity called Le Queur. Le Vainqueur. I have no idea if... What's interesting is that he doesn't say who these people are, which is very different to all these other things he lists. And like, why that omission there?
Right.
Like, why this omission? And he also says that preference shares were used as a shareholding instrument to disguise the actual owners of Vela Investments, as some of them were conflicted and for general secrecy. But my question is that, like, aren't all these holders that you're listing here, aren't they all holders of preference shares? Couldn't this all apply to, couldn't that statement apply equally to all of them? And also that they're doing it for their secrecy. Isn't this, why here? Like, this seems like something you can apply to all 5 of these people. So, like, why only all these persons, but legal persons? So, listeners, I did the air quotes if you didn't hear them.
You didn't hear
like, why here? Like, why here? And I did a thing in my voice, but like, if you don't know me, you might not have got that. So, like, why aren't you telling us who these people are?
Yeah.
Like,
I guess, and I'm wondering if
but they got 20 million. Let me just end with that.
Jesus, 20 million, dude. Okay, if you get 20 million, at least mention their name, because I guess I'm wondering, like, maybe it was part of the plea deal that, like, there's certain people that I will divulge information about and there's certain people that I absolutely will not. In which case, or it might have just been like, I can provide evidence for the people that I've named. The others I'm just stating from memory, but there's no documentation. So if I name them legally, your case might fall into the fucking AY because they're going to sue the shit out of me and they're going to sue the shit out of you because this is now public information. So maybe it's one of those...
because this is satire. No one's going to sue us.
Yeah, not us. This is everything we're talking about in theory, in a game, actually.
Game theory, one might say.
Yeah. So maybe that's what it is. But I guess I don't know. I'm being too kind to these people. Like, they shouldn't be leaving these names out. Like, these are people who are committing crimes. And this is a random tangent that is probably not needed here. But this is why when people say...
These are all allegations of these people committing crime. This is all in his affidavit. Let me just add that there. But yes, continue.
I kind of feel like... So this is when sociologists say crime is a social construct. In the sense that a lot of criminality can be paid out of. Like, if you have enough money, you can pay your way out of any sort of legal consequences. That's why the richest people in the world often tend to get slapped on the wrists when somebody who's a shoplifter or somebody who's just trying to, get food or something is often punished the most. That's what we mean. And so what that ultimately is being shown here is that, like, there's certain people that the government isn't willing or able to go after, and that should be a question in and of itself. Why are these instances of criminality not being fully divulged? Why are these people being let go? Why is this something that we're just like, okay, no, it's fine. You can name some of them, but then leave the others. And my theory and thinking is that I do genuinely believe in my heart of hearts, much like how I think you can also agree with this, that in the United States specifically, the police institution of itself is corrupt, it's fucked, and it needs to be dismantled. And I mean that in the social justice dismantling way, not in a policing doesn't have any value or whatever. And whatever, you can make that argument if you want to or not. But much in the same way, like that, like any good person who goes
like
into
there's systemic
policing,
rot here, and the only way to fix it is to dismantle
exactly.
it. And if fixing it is the goal.
Exactly, if you want to fix it. I believe it's the same with the corporate world. I truly, fully, fundamentally believe that. Everyone is in some way, shape, or form playing this game, and they're all trying to find a way to sort of maneuver around it. And the problem is that if one person, one cog in the machine falls on everybody, then other cogs will start to fall. And this is now conspiratorial, but it does feel like there's a certain level of protection there, because if everybody fucking rats on everybody, the economy will be fucked.
There's just like such widespread corruption,
right?
That like it doesn't like otherwise. Like, what do you mean? So they just don't know?
Exactly.
like that they don't know is even like it's like the world in which they don't know doesn't make sense to me. I'm just like, so how?
Yeah.
They have all these know your client checks, all these requirements, like there are obligations on them to know. And I bet you if you like a story about an ex, so this dude
Oh my god! I think that's 4 for 4.
So what was it? I think it was like, so he was crypto bro, low key. And I think he transferred, I think it was like 10,000 Rand into like somewhere and then transferred it back. And the Reserve Bank like got in his case about that. Like, why are you doing this? Like, what happened? He had to explain himself. He had to write a whole letter. So I'm saying like, this like random little Afrikaans boy, like he sends 10 grand and the Reserve Bank is on his case. So what about all these large sums we read about? Like,
yes.
What is they just like what? Like, oh, they just went through the cracks. Like, oh, just like no one knows. You know? Like I just don't understand like that. There is no like systemic corruption infiltrate like, and that goes within all our institutions, both public and private. Like that, I think that is the only logical explanation. Call it conspiratorial, call it whatever you want, but I don't understand how any other explanation makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
I don't think it can qualify as conspiratorial if that's just the way the system functions. I mean, you know that famous saying, the system does exactly what it was made to do, or something. I've butchered it, but it's like the system functions exactly as it's supposed to. So you can't keep saying, well, capitalism is supposed to do X and capitalism is supposed to do Y, when 40 years of history of capitalism has proven to you that capitalism does this one thing, which is inequality. You can't now look at that and say, no, but that's
trickle-down economics.
Exactly. You can't look at that and say, no, but that's not what capitalism is supposed to be about. This is just the system fucking up what capitalism is supposed to be. It's like, no, that's what it is. You're ignoring the thing for what it is. And that's what I think about this case as well, where it's like, it's not conspiratorial at all. I mean, it's a very easy way to be like A equals B and therefore C, and to be like, this is what the system is. And so it feels like a bunch of people are protecting each other for the good of the economy, for the good of the system, or whatever it is, to maintain some semblance of normalcy, without the recognition that for a lot of people, normalcy means that we get fucked. Like 1.9 billion Rand disappears and now the country has to pay for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a bit of a fuckery.
Well, but there is a fifth entity which I'm such a professional. A fifth entity which I hadn't spoken about yet. Okay. And that is Venmont Capital, assuming I had no typos in that. Sorry. But what makes Venmont Capital different is that Venmont is owned by Matodzi. And also these amounts previously that I've been talking about, they were just nominal. He gave point blank, 19 point whatever million, whatever. Now for him, the company that he owns, he says he got 700 million Rand no, he did not say that. He said he got 700,000 per month, which is interesting because like just times that by 24, because this is over a 2-year period, maybe even 3 if it's like beginning of 2018, 16 to end of the other one. But let's say 2-year period, 700,000 times 24 is 16.8 million. So like, Jesus. He wrote down the smaller number. Like this guy has motivations. Like it's like when people say like people don't have an ideology. Like I don't know. Like people are like, I'm just an honest actor observing these. But like you make decisions. Yes. Why are you making these decisions? Like there's a motive behind these things, whether it's ideology or, but there's this motive behind what this guy is doing. And that's another reason why I just do, like, I'm like, what is up with this? This seems like, what are you doing here? You know, like, I feel like time will reveal all, but like, this is like, I don't know. But he says that he also uses the shares for general secrecy. And he also, so I'm saying that that's how he knows that the others did it too. Maybe it was his idea even to do all these entities. And then I also said Mr. KPMG. So he also adds that in other cases, quote unquote, I would still use any of Vele accounts to pay additional personal costs or needs. So there's potentially more money of who knows how much he's willing to admit to that he has taken from Vele. I mean, we know that investigation was like, what was that amount? Like 300 and something million, I think. So that investigation found out that amount. But these are the people in Vencore. And as we said, the PM Trust was for the benefit of Paul Mkavu and the king, the Vende King, the former Vende King, I believe. I don't know if he's president or former. But it does actually say that the king and Makavu received irregular gratifications from Vele paid to their nominated bank accounts. This links back to the systemic corruption thing. So I assume this isn't VBS. It's not VBS.
Right.
This is going into insert bank here. Why? Nor do these know your client checks. Like, why are you getting this money? Like, why is this happening? Did they do their due diligence? Did they get bribes? Who knows? Anyway, they also say that Paul and the king threatened to orchestrate his removal from chairmanship. And I assume that threat is like one of that, like, if they don't provide him with gratification. So that's why he kept doing it, because they threatened him, you know. But we know that this guy was doing crimes as well. So it's like, the threat was like, let us do these crimes. If not, we'll stop you doing your crimes. And I'm like, what is the point of like saying that they threatened you to do it by like exposing your crimes? But I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, at this point, that motive, like that's not, I don't know. At this point, like, why try that case? You know what I mean? Like, why even try to fiend like fear? Like, I'm sorry, there's no other motivation here. You wanted money and you got it. We're in bed with each other, guys. Exactly. Like, I don't know at what point you can be like, I was scared, Your Honor. Like, fuck off. Like, there's no way.
Well, maybe Matodzi's showing us the way. This is the way to do it. If you do crimes, at least you'll pay 15 years. Maybe you'll be fine after that. But I did see in this affidavit, there was this scheme that was quite interesting, and this was a 250 million rand fictitious loan to purchase half of Insure Group. And I'm just going to tell you a little tale of that. So, 2016, Matodzi is approached by people who say they have a mandate to look for $250 million in funding for Insure Group managers. And they wanted this as a loan initially. And Matodzi says no, because he's like, VBS can't afford it. We don't have the cash. We can't give you that loan. Then 2016 again, they chat to him and they're like, okay, wait, how about instead of this loan, how about we sell you half of Insure for that 250 million? So VBS does their due diligence, and he and Andile, the CEO, they agree that they're going to go through with this. However, VBS isn't going to earn 50%. Vele is going to earn 50%.
How did they think they were going to get away with this? I don't understand.
It's just like, it's crazy. It's just like, it's like surely not, guys. Like, surely not. Like, surely at some point you're like, okay, this is too much. Like,
because I'm sorry, but like, okay, I'm not going to disrespect accountants. I feel like they are the backbone of, like, them and Excel spreadsheets are the backbone of economies all over the world. But like, at some point you have to recognize that an accountant, and then we'll see this and go, that doesn't make sense. And then they'll go, can you double check this to somebody else? And then they'll go, that doesn't make sense. And so on and so forth. Like, how do you in your brain think someone will look at this and be like, cool, that's good to go? Like, I don't understand, unless that someone is, of course, in your back pocket.
I can pay off this other,
right,
so this is like 2016, and then they have another meeting again in 2017. They hold another meeting.
You know what's so interesting? That, like, in that board meeting, because I understand on some level that these conversations aren't happening on the record. They're sort of, making these deals and agreements in the background. But at some point, you have to bring this to your team. And I'm wondering what that boardroom would be like if they're like, okay, so we're making this deal, but instead of us purchasing it for VBS, we're going to purchase it for Vele. And then the team going, why? Like, I don't... why? Like, I don't understand. Like, and then seeing how they justify that. Like, I don't know. Like, surely there's a paper trail for that. Like, their justification for it. And in which case you can use that as evidence of, like, intent. I don't know. But, like, fuck. Things like this always make me feel like imposter syndrome is just idiotic for anybody to have, because people successfully work their way towards like points like this, and then they get away with it for so long that you're like, I don't quite understand the level of incompetence it took for you to fail this hard. Do you know what I mean? But then I also think, does that then mean, because from one of my favorite Netflix shows, Mindhunters. The serial killer.
Have you seen that new movie, the one with Nick Cage? It's a horror
Long
movie.
Legs?
Nick Cage, yes.
I haven't seen Long
That gave
Legs.
me such Mindhunter. I loved that movie. It was sick. It
Okay,
was
good.
Mindhunter.
I saw you rated it actually on Letterboxd. I need to go watch it. I don't know if it's out in the theaters this side. They're quite censorious, to be honest, in terms of movies this side. Like they didn't release challenges to us for obvious reasons.
Because women playing sport. Oh no, women manipulating men into playing sport, rather.
Yeah, and then also becoming into a throuple and so on and so forth. Like, like I think the country tends to not release certain. Yeah, they literally don't release certain movies and shows. Anyway, in Mindhunter, one of the criminals goes, because they were getting cocky now, the detectives. They were like, we're figuring it out. We're starting to understand the mind of the serial killer. And he's like, you're only understanding the people who you've caught, which means you're only understanding the ones who make mistakes, like the ones who fuck up. Yeah. So it means that your data is completely skewed. In which case, if you use that logic here, it's like, yeah, of course we catch the ones who are being really fucking dumb, but it really plays into the sort of conversation we were having earlier about the system essentially being or allowing corruption, because then if you're good at it, you're not going to get caught. You're not going to get found. Yeah. So the data is skewed in terms of like seeing people get caught and us being like, oh, they're so dumb. And it's like, of course they were. They're the ones who got caught. They're the ones who were stupid enough to do dumb things, you know? It's really fucked. I don't like it.
Totally, completely, very fucked. Very, very fucked. But just on that, not on that, back to what I was, because I was like doubting myself. Like he does, it's weird because these agreements are steps in this process happening. Because in 2017, he ends up rejecting one of their proposals after he had agreed to this other thing. And he does say, quote unquote, this is about this $250 million that they want. He says, I later realized what Insure was looking for was proof of funds, so a letter, from VBS to satisfy its clients that Insure had liquid funds to the value of $250 million. So he's basically saying they don't need this money. They just need to show that they have this money, right? which is a level of abstraction. So Matodzi then says, I then proposed that we could do the transaction on condition that the money from the purchase price be deposited into a VBS bank account, and that the funds must only be available or withdrawn by the seller after 5 years. So they all agree to this plan. So this money, no one's going to touch it for 5 years. It'll all be okay. But they all agree. And in 2017 again, they deliberate how they're going to record it in the books, because they know they're doing something shady, but how we're going to put it up.
Yes.
So they say that this money of $250 million would be credited into the Insure account to be opened with VBS, and it would be quote unquote locked or pledged over those 5 years, so that no withdrawals could be made. And due to the size, $250 million, and that's beyond the authority of the CEO, to which I assume means that if it's beyond the authority of the CEO of a bank, I assume that means that it has to be under the authority of the Reserve Bank. Yeah. So they decide to hide it and quietly settle it. And they were unconcerned about this because they had 5 years. There's a 5-year pledge. No one's going to touch it. Like it's. We'll make don't worry. So later, Insure and Vela conclude the agreement. They all agree. Sharp $250 million. Then VBS creates the money. Insure also opens an account for short-term deposits. So they actually have money that they're putting in, and he says that this is going to help them during December or other periods of excessive cash withdrawals. And this $250 million payment was created by way of a pledge into the VBS banking system. Yeah, and there was no formal loan agreement signed between VBS and Vela. So we're going to give you money. You're going to pay us back, right? Sure, cool. Yeah. And he says, while the intention was to sign a contract of loan between VBS and Vela, there was intention there, guys. From the onset, there was intention from the onset. Wanted to. Sure. For the money creates to purchase Insure. This, however, never materialized. It never materialized. He goes on to say, neither was this transaction disclosed in any credit reports nor presented to the board for approval. It was left as a fictitious pledge in the books of VBS. Jeez. And remember that deal that like no touchy for 5 years? 5 years. Yeah, of course someone fucking touched it, right? So Insure negotiates. They get $20 million withdrawn. And then this chap, this O called Trota and they realized, Trota and Matodzi realized that there was another withdrawal. They realized, allegedly they realized. Because I'm like, what do you mean realize? Chairman of the bank, you realize? Cool. So they realized there was another withdrawal of $50 million. Jesus. He says that he expressed his unhappiness. Not give me this money back. He said, I am upset about this.
I'm finger wagging, which is a legal way of saying like, I was against this, but secretly I didn't want to do anything because all all of it was illegal, and therefore, if I did anything, I'm fucked.
Yeah. And just to close, this is clause 19.9.
Oh wait, sorry. Before you do move on, I want to go back to that the language used there, that it never materialized. Yes. Now, after the the media
voice.
Analysis that we've done, with Palestine and Israel and stuff, like you realize how passive that is. It never materialized. That's like no.
Don't you mean they never signed an agreement?
Yeah, exactly. Like this agreement isn't an entity in and of itself. It can't just grow and be like, I am materializing
and
into
materialize.
a thing. Yeah. Like I am now a material thing now. It's like one of you has to do it. In which case, if it was never done,
to create this agreement.
One of you deliberately decided not to create that agreement, and you can't say we forgot about it. That's 250 million rand. It's impossible. Like you can't.
I mean, he even says like it wasn't disclosed in any credit reports nor presented to the board for approval. I mean, it was hidden. It wasn't not disclosed. Right. It was hidden.
Exactly. It was hidden. Like it wasn't. Yeah. Don't bullshit. It was not disclosed. It was hidden. You purposefully didn't disclose it. Like. Oh my God.
But then he ends with, our failure to properly record this insured transaction resulted in this 250 million rand amount being fictitiously created in the VBS banking system, resulting in an unreconciled cash of 250 million again, which did not exist. So that money made up, there we go. Case in point, there's an example right there. Yeah. They made money up. And that money was legal. I mean, that money went out. It literally left the bank system. Yeah. So it's not even like it was just, at least we have 70 million that we know of that left of this fictitious money that was created. And like, I haven't even like, this isn't all the money that was like fictitiously created. Like there could be more. I don't know. Is there? Who knows? Yeah. But it's insane. It's like, I just want to know more.
No, there could be more in the sense that it never materialized, right? I mean, you know how money does that sometimes. It sometimes doesn't declare itself, and so it just exists sometimes. And
like pala pala.
Yeah.
Like when the president put money in his couch or whatever.
It's like money just happens to exist. So in my head, I'm thinking now, like that 250 mil is the money that was sort of evidence to be there and to be seen, but there easily could have been money that wasn't even in part of these conversations. If your bank is able to move 250 million rand quietly like that, right? It means that you knew that, and you were able to do this in some other smaller capacity as well. You know what I mean? Which is like, I know I'm being sort of nefarious towards them and being like, master plan, and you know, they can't both, like, it's almost like that sort of conservative.
And these guys know what they're doing. I mean, they know what
they know what they're doing, like, yeah. And when we say they're stupid, we mean that they're stupid in the very specific sense that they just didn't know how to hide the money. But they're extremely smart in that they got to the point where they could do such things. You know what I mean? So we have to talk about it in that sense. Like, it is nefarious in what they've done. It's nuts, man.
Yeah. Oh, but that is what I have for VBS today.
So Aka's just given us a very interesting deep dive and insight into the world of corruption and the way it functions in South Africa, which actually we need to have an episode discussing corruption, what it means, what it entails, and also the racialized sort of nature of it, where for a lot of white folks, corruption is synonymous with blackness, and white people don't do corruption. They just like commit fraud, or they do certain things that with words that aren't so strictly associated to their race, and so they don't consider it corruption, which is, you know, interesting connotations on their own. But now we just wanted to have a quick conversation around the US, because as Aka called us at the top of this episode, or at least last week's episode, is we are Marabous. We have a keen interest on the US elections. And actually, do you know what? We don't have to justify it all the time. America is the largest country in the world economically. They're also militarily the fucking largest country. And therefore, anything and everything that they do...
I could say culturally too.
Culturally too, yeah. Therefore, anything and everything they do has an effect materially on pretty much everyone on the planet. And therefore, we have to talk about them. It's like we're stuck in a freaking like prison of their making, and we all just have to sort of maintain this idea. But yeah, like let me ask you, Aka, actually initially, what are your thoughts on the whole Kamala situation for the listeners? If you don't know, then you might be living under a rock. But Joe Biden has...
Wrong podcast. If you don't know, wrong podcast.
Wrong podcast entirely. Joe Biden has stepped down, not as his position as president, but rather as his position as president-elect for the next elections. He was going to be the nominee, but he stepped down from that to, quote-unquote, focus on his duties and his role as president now. And he has endorsed Kamala Harris to be the next president, at least for the Democratic nominee, which has implications of its own, and it's a very interesting situation. So, yeah, Akka, what are your thoughts on that evolving situation?
I think it's about time Biden's not running for president. I think that Kamala makes them, especially because of the timing. I don't think the Democrats have the luxury of holding an open primary again, or like running other candidates. I think that, people are going to start voting as soon as September. I think that's when mail-in ballots start coming out. I think that's what AOC said in that little ramble she had on Instagram or whatever it was. So they have literally 2 months. You can't run the name recognition, I don't know, but I think that we are in for some really cool quotes.
Oh, yeah.
Like the likes of "Do not come." That was a beautiful one. Where she's telling these people who are seeking asylum that they should stay in the awful place where they are, that they should not try to seek a better life, that they should stay where they are because they will be turned away, because America does not apparently respect international law in that respect, because I think that's an obligation that countries have.
They made international law.
They made, but they don't sign. They tell others what to do. They do their own thing. What was that? The coconut tree? The wheels on the bus go round and round, sing that.
Phenomenal.
She has so many bangers, but I think what I find really interesting is that she is not this liberal bastion or this lefty bastion that you might think she would be with her dad. I think her dad was a Marxist economist and lecturer, I think at Stanford, I'm not sure exactly. And one could think maybe she grew up in Marx. She was molded by it. Didn't see what was the other dude? Friedman until but what I've heard is that she's very friendly with the donor class in the Democratic Party, and that they're very happy with her being the candidate, which I think does not speak well for the common person. For the average American. It speaks well in the sense that it's not going to Orange Man's probably not going to be in now.
Yeah.
But whether your life is materially going to improve, probably in some aspects, but in the ones that actually confront the way people relate in society, the way people make money, the way people earn a living, the way people have is that going to fundamentally change? I wouldn't hold my breath for Kamala being the vector for that change. But what do you think?
Totally spot on with everything you said there. I think Americans can't expect too much change. I don't think they can, because I do think, nobody is insusceptible to propaganda. So, even while the memes and stuff are amazing, I do catch myself sort of laughing and being on her team, because they're just objectively funny. They're just super funny.
Yeah.
But then also nefariously though, the one about "Do not come," as funny as that is out of context, in context that you put up there, she was specifically talking to immigrants, that's not a good thing that we're sort of laughing at, right? That's an objectively bad thing.
I don't want to say, I don't think it's funny in this. I think it's funny as in mask off funny. You're saying the quiet part out loud funny. It's funny to us, the people who know what you're it's funny in the sense, this is an awful thing that she is saying, 100%.
Yes.
But it's just I don't know, just the absurdity of it is funny. That's what makes it funny. How absurd
it's holy shit, you're supposed to be the side that pretends not to say these things, and yet you're just brazenly saying it.
Yeah.
And I think she's just one of those candidates that's like you said, it bodes well that, Orange Man bad, he likely won't win, and therefore she will win. But I think many people are now making the mistake that somehow she was being sort of caged, and Biden was sort of forcing her to agree to most of his policies and things. And now that she's free to be the president, she can now do everything that she wanted to do. It's no, if she was truly deeply against a lot of these things, I know politicians are very strategic and tactical, and maybe she was stopped from doing it, but there's been no indication before she was picked as VP, and even during her time as VP, that she is this progressive bastion. Exactly, she was a prosecutor.
She's not.
This isn't.
She would have been a defender if she was if she was some progressive bastion.
This isn't going to be the person you think is going to sort of change the world. But I will say that in terms of protection against women, in terms of abortion rights, in terms of just childcare and and stuff. She is absolutely better than Biden on that, and she will be better at spreading that message, I think, than he will ever be.
I mean, Biden's a Catholic. He doesn't like abortion himself.
He does not. He doesn't believe in abortion. Yeah, he fully doesn't believe in it. He often doesn't comment on it. He'll often not say anything. And the fact that Roe v. Wade being overturned kind of happened under his watch, and they didn't really do much of anything about it, is indicative of his position. But I think Kamala is very different in that field. Like in that regard, I will say, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I will also say that like maybe this was a strategy on her part, but there is some. At least I want to have some semblance of hope that she does veer more to the left of Biden in terms of the policy on Gaza. And the reason I think this is because she's often, at least earlier this year, and maybe it was a little bit to the end of last year, she was taking a bit of a step back away from Biden's positioning. And there were murmurs and rumors, and you know how they release things in the press. They'll say like, oh, we heard from a staffer that like
strategic leaks.
That she had a lot more empathy for Palestinians, that she felt like Biden was being too lovey-dovey with Netanyahu, and she just, it was I get the sense that like hopefully, maybe, I beg and plead to whatever is out there that, you know, she isn't doing that on a sort of more political standpoint of like, oh, well, you know, I just think, and hopefully, I guess politically, it also does make sense to sort of not align yourself with Bibi. Like, I think it's just, it's the smarter option, but the problem is that a lot of the funders and a lot of the money that's coming in are all supporters of Israel. So you can't really sort of...
You can't say anything until you have the position.
Exactly. You can't be like, yeah, we're going to stop the war and we're going to fucking fight against Israel and we're going to stop sending them weapons. You can't do any of that shit right now. Like, you kind of need to play your strategically, like, high...
AIPAC lobby is insane.
Yeah, it's nuts. And I believe she's received, I think, 5-point-something million from them over her time in office. So she's fucking swimming in AIPAC cash. Yeah. So it wouldn't shock me.
Sorry, what is AIPAC?
That's a great question. So AIPAC is a lobbying group in the US. And they're representative of I believe they're representative of the state of Israel, right? Like they're directly tied to them.
American lobbying group advocating for pro-Israeli policies. Which is, imagine there's like an American lobbying group advocating for pro-Chinese policies, right, or pro like
it doesn't, and like it like objectively doesn't make sense, and it's actually kind of strange that this country has that much political influence over another country. Now we want our listeners to know, and this is very important, when we're talking about this, we're talking about this objectively. In no way are we trying to claim the sort of things that the right have often claimed, which is the sort of anti-Semitic idea that like Israel's in the background fucking controlling, you know, the United States. You cannot take the US's agency out of this whatsoever. The US wants Israel to exist. They want them to exist as a state, and they want to give them weaponry because they recognize them as a powerful strategic ally in the Middle East. There's no way around that.
Joe himself even said, I think you could probably find a drop and insert it if you want, but he said that they'd create an Israel in the Middle East if there wasn't one already.
Yes.
Like they want Israel to be there. There are strategic reasons why America props it up, and it's not some puppeteer thing where like, no, America has agency. America can turn off the tap when it wants to, as it did with the apartheid government. I mean, it turned off the tap for apartheid government way too late. Yeah. And late, maybe not way too late, but like there's a genocide happening. Right. So they could be way too late in the Palestinian case. Yeah. And that would be sad.
Yeah. So it's literally it is sad, and it's literally a mutually beneficial relationship. So at no point are we trying to sort of say that like, you know, I don't know, Israel has some influence here. What we are actually saying is that the influence that Israel has is, as the Israeli state, is financial, and also ensuring that their state continues to be backed by the most powerful country in the world. That's essentially what it is. They're essentially just buying protection here. America is their big bad bodyguard, and so if they stop giving them money, the bodyguard will stop protecting them, and vice versa. It's like a very mutually assured relationship there. And so for Kamala to be receiving money from them is indicative of the support that she will show for Israel, while still holding hope to the fact that she might maybe be a little bit more progressive than Biden on this, and step away from the sort of hardcore visceral support, staunch support of Israel. And so I think just in terms of everything else, what I did want to mention is that we are in for possibly the most racist and misogynistic shit we've ever heard in a primary. And I know that Obama was bad. Like, I know the Muslim stuff and the Kenya stuff was bad.
At least he was a dude, you know?
Yeah, exactly. exactly. He had the whole man thing going.
In Trump's eyes.
Yeah. Kamala Harris is a black woman. Like, she's gonna get fucking eviscerated in terms of the sort of from the conservatives, and it's becoming clearer and clearer every day because, like, you can tell they're scrambling.
I mean, they're calling her a DEI hire.
Right. Like, they don't have anything substantive to say about her or against her, because, to be honest, the majority of their research done this year was probably done on Joe Biden. They didn't expect him to drop out until, of course, that terrible debate performance, in which case it really put the Republicans on the back foot. And it's really fun to see Trump scrambling because he doesn't know what to say. He's trying things out.
I mean, his joke for Kamala was like laughing.
Yeah, laughing Kamala. Like, what is that, dude? Come on. And this is so
Joe
funny.
is 10 times better.
Yeah.
Like someone laughs about, is that your bit about them? They laugh. Cool guy. Go back to
what does that mean?
Grade school. Go get
Sleepy Joe actually was like an indictment on his ability to like serve the country properly.
Yeah.
Like, laughing Kamala, fuck off. This is why I love Twitter. Twitter was like, he's off his game, man. He's not there. He used to be so much better than this. He did. He used to be much better on his feet. And I also think, just on the Trump thing, JD Vance, even though I don't know much about him, I watched that clip of him at one of his rallies trying to sort of discuss like Mountain Dew and how the left would call him racist for drinking like Diet Mountain Dew, and nobody was like laughing really. The dude just, I don't know, he doesn't have it, dude. He doesn't, like, you can't.
He doesn't.
I can say all that I want about Trump and that I don't like him and whatever, but the dude has charisma. We can't deny it. People like him. He's funny. He's unintentionally hilarious. Like, he's just a funny dude. And JD Vance is like one of those irritating. He's just irritating. That's the best way to put it.
I mean, he's from is it Appalachia? That's how they say it, Appalachia. Yeah. And he wrote a book basically about how, like, these people have bad culture. And I went to Yale, and like, they should be more like me. They should put down their pipes. They should, like, he literally spoke down upon where he's from. Yeah. It's just like, he's not like this populist dude. I mean, a lot of his backers are these right-wing crypto bros. He's very like crypto. I think he himself owns crypto assets. Yeah. He's not the one. He's just, but I guess I think when Trump first won, he wrote a thing about how awful it was that Trump won.
He called him Hitler at a certain point.
Yeah. Yes, he did. And then?
Yeah, it's like, and now, like, it's kind of like how Trump dissed Mike Pence about his wife, and Mike Pence is all of a sudden like willing to be his VP. Like, this man, he cucks all of his vice presidents. It's kind of you have to respect it. This is one of those instances you have to respect it.
Respect the game.
But yeah, back to the Kamala Harris thing. I think many people, I've even heard, like, I was over the weekend, I was in a car with a bunch of family members, all of which were black women. None of them believed, like, had any aorta of belief that Kamala Harris could win. They were like, she's not going to win. She's a woman. She's black. Like they had no sense of like genuine belief. And I was like, I don't think you understand how many people weren't voting for Joe Biden. They were voting against Trump. So it almost didn't matter who it was that was the nominee, because people are just like, give us a body, give us someone with some semblance of substance, to just kind of like go against Trump. And I think Kamala Harris is the perfect, I guess, antidote to Trump, because she's really good at speaking. She knows how to think on her feet. She's also much younger, and I'm gonna be ageist on this. I don't believe people should be fucking 80 years old and still running governments. I don't back
certain instances.
So I think like they're underestimating like the importance of that, and also the sort of new energy that's going to come from just people being excited that she's there, you know, that it's someone new, that it isn't just another Joe Biden versus Donald Trump election again, which I'm also like somewhat excited about. But this is the US we're talking about. The excitement that comes from me is more sort of watching this as someone who's like a spectator in the Coliseum watching gladiators fight, in that I have no dog in the fight, you know, like there's no real, I mean, I
guess you do have a dog, but not an abstract dog.
Yes, not one that's like currently fighting out at the moment. Yeah, I have an idea of a dog, and that dog isn't represented, so I'm going to support the one that looks most like mine for the time being. And that's ultimately what I'm doing, is that I'm just watching this and hoping, really, truly hoping that Donald Trump doesn't win again.
Do you remember back in 2016 when we were writing our exams and they announced that Trump won and people clapped?
People fucking clapped, dude. Remember, and I don't want to mention his name, but we knew of a very
we're thinking of the same person.
Super Donald Trump supporter, and I've never been able to look at him the same since, because like that moment just kind of sort of solidified it for me that like I recognize the support that Trump gets, I recognize why he does what he does, but if you are a somewhat level-headed person and you look at Donald Trump and you think, I actually think he's like a good leader. Yeah, if you have a heart even, and you look at him and you go, I think he's a really good option, I can't trust you from that point moving forward, because it means you fundamentally agree with everything that he believes in and I don't. So that's a sort of awkward situation. But the last thing that I did want to say, where in 2016 I truly like, I fundamentally believe Donald Trump didn't expect to win. I wholeheartedly believe that. If you look at the man's face in that period of time, even Melania, like they were just both like deers in headlights. Like they were like, how the fuck did this happen? Whereas now there's generally been a consensus around Republicans where they've like recognized that like, okay, Donald Trump is our guy, whether you like him or not. We need to build something of substantive around him because we didn't take enough advantage of our initial time that he was in office. So let's do something now. And that's, the Project 2025 document that they've released. They've given them like a step-by-step playbook of like who to hire in certain positions, what it is that they need to do, which judges to hire, which courts to fill.
Is this the Federalist Society?
I think so, yeah. Which is another lobbying group. Which, by the way, we need to mention that lobbying is just another way to call... it's corruption. It's legalized corruption.
It's bribes.
To be honest, it is just bribes. And this is what I mean by why people often associate corruption with blackness. Because... I'm sorry, but like lobbying groups, it's just bribery. That's just basic corruption. But yeah, that's what makes Trump scarier this time around, is that there's a playbook and he just has to follow the playbook. And that's a legitimate concern. Where initially he was a bumbling buffoon trying to sort of run around and do shit. Now it's going to be a more concerted effort with people around him to be like, no, stick to the plan. And that's not great. We do not want to see that. So
also what enables them to have this is that like they have an ideology and they are powerful too. They want to do They have the politics that they're motivated by, and they have the power to enact those politics.
Yes.
Whereas like the American quote unquote left, they're the center right. The Democrats are like centrist. Like their party is so widespread. Like, could they even do a Federalist Society? Like, could they even what would their plan be? There'd be so many conflicting things. Like, let's have a $20 minimum wage. I think it should be $5. Someone's going to be like, no. It should be like it's so wide, and it's just like, what is this politics that they're going to have? And unfortunately, the actual left doesn't have the power required to do their own Federalist Society. Even though, I mean, the left is trying grassroots. It is a continuing struggle and fight and journey, etc. But damn, to have a billionaire in your pocket and just be able to find everything you want.
It's helpful. It's extremely helpful. I'm
that would be the one good billionaire.
And the thing is, I just in terms of that, like we'll go over it actually in the next episode when we go on the debate, the opening of Parliament in South Africa. But one of the sort of things that I want to make clear in that episode is that the Overton window in South Africa is very far to the left. I mean, not far enough, in my opinion, but it's far enough that the conservative parties are completely okay with ignoring the sort of UBI that South Africa has. Like they're not wanting to scrap the sort of universal basic income that South Africans tend to have through certain grants and stuff.
Social grants.
Because they recognize that that's just political suicide. They're not willing to go after, at least strictly speaking, the healthcare system, except the DA wants to privatize it as much as possible. There's certain things that they've ceded ground on.
That is, privatization means profits. Profits means costs go up for the regular person.
Entirely.
Or workers get paid less.
Yes.
How are you voting for people who want these things to happen? It's just insane.
Exactly. But so if in South Africa conservative parties are willing to be like, yeah, no, we will be fine, we'll leave grants and welfare, like that's okay, we won't touch that. In the US, the Democratic Party would never even slightly consider that as a possibility. Like they just wouldn't accept it because, like you said, they can't even agree on a fucking increase of minimum wage.
I mean, they'll do a Biden to you. They'll do a Bernie Biden to you.
Yeah.
They'll find an old white guy who's a center right dude and get him to replace you.
Yeah, entirely. And so their Overton window is very much center right, like you said, and so they're fighting a very different battle to what South Africans are fighting, and that's what makes it very particularly interesting, because it's like the left that side needs far more help than the left this side needs. Even though we'll get into sort of that more deeply in the next episode. Okay, but thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Hopefully you listened to part 1 last week and you enjoyed that.
All this to say, listeners, listeners, thank you for listening to Pink Notice. I hope you subscribe. I hope you leave a comment. I hope you enjoy. Please leave comments. Please tell us what you think. I want your feedback. Give it a little heart. Does it like if you're on sub, if you're still listening, actually, if you're still listening, at the bottom of there's a like heart icon on Substack. You know, it might not mean a lot to you, but like to me, to my brain, to my soul, it feeds me. Like I eat, I get full. It's the food to my
not you getting sensual with our listeners.
Yes, like, comment, subscribe, do all the good things, share it with your friends, share it on Shared, using Shared, do all the good things, subscribe to Pink Notice, and yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining.